Welcome back. Welcome to the New Cow Corner. I know I always say I got a special one for you, but today I got a special one for you. Um, Today we have the privilege of talking to Quincy from Gecko Nerd. We're going to talk about some genetics, his collections, some stuff with the hobby. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff, so you're definitely going to want to stay tuned to this one. Without any further ado, let's welcome Quincy. If you don't mind, can you just introduce yourself to people that may be living under a stone for the last 20 years? Let us know who you are,
Sure.
what you do.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Quincy. I'm from Gecko Nerd. It's my business name. I've been breeding crested geckos. I also breed gargoyle geckos, Leachianus, and a few other species that I'm working with, mainly New Caledonian species. Been breeding for going on 10 years now. In the last few years, I've really ramped up production, so probably see me on social media and Palm Street and stuff like that.
Absolutely. A lot of people don't know this. I mean, I don't even know if you know this, but one of my first, it was only like a $200 animal, but one of I would call that at the time was a big money animal for me, when I finally got out of like the pet store thing and started buying animals. One of my very first, if not my first animal came from you. He wound up turning out he was a dark at the time. Everybody gets into the hobby, and I don't care what anybody says. People bash the Dalmatian spots. 90% of the people that get into this hobby fall in love with Dalmatians right off the bat. Patterns, spots, everything. Everybody loves spots when they get into this. It's only after these people put these notions and ideas in our head of what we're supposed to like do we start bashing them. But that's a topic for later on. But nonetheless, I got this super dark phantom a Dalmatian from you. He wound up turning green. He wound up turning like an crazy olive green colors. Super cool animal. I eventually wound up trading him because I had so many males. But yeah, wound up one of my first quality animals came from you, dude.
Oh man, that's awesome.
Very cool. I'll never forget it. Never forget it. Great service. Great experience all around. It was a pleasant welcoming to the hobby, if you will. No hiccups, no delayed shipping, no scams, no nothing. It was a nice, smooth, flawless transaction. So
Awesome.
what what brought you to crested geckos? How did you get into this?
So I've always loved reptiles. Growing up, I had pets. My parents had pets. I was pretty outdoorsy as a kid, growing up in Miami, fishing and seeing wildlife in the glades and all that. So it was normal for me to have pets. I had bearded dragons and turtles and tortoises, all kinds of stuff growing up, snakes.
Awesome.
But it wasn't until I was 20 years old I got a job at a local reptile store here in Miami. And seeing everything there, really being introduced into the business of it all. That's what really drew me into the geckos. I started seeing all these cool crested geckos coming into the shop. I saw Leachianus for the first time and a few other species like that, and I knew, okay, I can see myself working with this and breeding this.
Awesome. So did you have the intentions of starting a business right off the jump, or was it kind of like a pet thing and then it evolved into a business? Or were you just like, I'm doing this, I'm starting a business, this is what I'm working with? How did that transpire?
No, I think really early on it was really just pets that I had, and it slowly tumbled into a business. I tell everybody, I started this small on a small budget. I was 20 years old and grew from there, slowly grew from there. It's only been the last few years or so, maybe 6 years or so, that I've been producing on a high number.
Awesome. I feel that's a smart way. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I feel like a lot of people don't grasp that until it's too late and they're like have hundreds of animals, right? It's like
Yeah,
people get
yeah,
that Pokemon mentality and they just start buying, like, I'm going to do this, I want to do this, and I'm going to do it better than everybody else. And they go all in, right? Like guys are taking out loans, people are buying all types of stuff, and they really don't know what's involved. They don't know that there's a lot
yeah,
of competition that you cannot, as much as we'd like, you can't just take gecko A and gecko B and put them together and out pops your vision. It doesn't work like that. Like there's a lot involved, a lot that goes on behind the scenes, and slow and steady is definitely the best technique when it comes to this new cow game. I can personally vouch for that. We I don't know if I heard you say it. Well, a lot of people have said it, but it's hard when you really like the animal, right? Almost because you like your likes as a person and your objective as a business don't always line up. Like we can love all crested geckos, right? We can look at every morph out there and have an appreciation and see, individual animals that blow our mind, like wow, wow, wow. But it doesn't always work like that when you have a business, right? You can't say I'm going to work with every morph out there. I mean, I guess you could, but it's not realistic for most of us out here. It's it could just be too much. You wind up with too much stuff going on, and as a business, it makes more sense to deal with specific genes and traits and morphs and kind of master that craft, if you will, hone in on those genes and a very specific look or again genes or something you're looking for. What are you working with? What are your specialties, if you will, or what exactly do you have going on at Gecko Nerd, morph wise, gene wise?
So these days, it's a long list.
Yeah,
I am at the point where I feel like I want every single morph and gene out there.
you've earned it.
But yeah, I'm a big color guy, so any bright color, that's really what attracts me the most. Um, but I'd say my biggest projects are lily whites, empty backs, phantoms. I have a huge thing of tangerines. I'm working on all types of tangerines, cappuccinos, and a million combos of all of those.
That's nice. I mean, that's really.
Yeah.
I mean, with those, I mean, the things you just said. I mean, there's no limits to the things you can produce. It's pretty much exactly what I have. I mean, and there's really no limits. You can make just about anything, any combination of things you want. I mean, it's awesome. Do you have a favorite? Is there anything that you like more than everything else? Because I know
Uh,
I do. I love them all, but I have a favorite, man.
really. I'd say it probably changes every single day as I
Really,
spend time with the animals, and I'm like, oh no, that's the best one. No, that's the best one. But I think today my answer would be anything tangerine.
really.
Yeah.
I would go. I'm a Lily White fan, man. I think that
Okay.
as far as a look, a versatile gene, they're in my eyes, they're the greatest thing going. I mean, even these new genes, everything that comes out, when do they really get the best? When it's paired up with a lily, right? Put a lily to it, and you will get the best of the best of the best that anything can produce. I mean, in my opinion, obviously, these are just my opinions I'm speaking on. For people out there that don't have them, you don't need them. A lot of people don't like them. I personally do. I think that and I don't like all super 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 white animals, if you will. I like that contrast. I think there's a healthy combination of color and the whites. For it would make the perfect animal in theory. It's but again, a preference thing. Nothing more than a preference. It's one of the beauties of this hobby, if you will, right? Like we can pretty much. It's like an ice cream shop. You can get any flavor you want. It's it's good. It's it's cool. I only see it growing, to be completely honest with you. With people like yourself and other people out there spreading the word, and new genes and morphs that are almost they seem like they're popping up on a daily basis now. That the hobby's just growing, and a big animal person myself. If you look at the cat and the dog world, I ask myself all the time, why not? Why can't reptiles be as big as cats and dogs? They take less work. In all honesty, they do. You don't have to walk a gecko 5 times a day. I mean, yes, I give them water and whatnot, but you don't have to. It's nothing like a dog or a cat. Just about every home in America has some sort of pet. I think that it's there's a bright future for it. What So when did you really start? I'm always going on these rants. So just tell me to shut up, Quincy. Anytime you want, just shut up.
No, you're good.
At what point did you really start getting a hang of the genes and the morphs and the genetic aspect of the gecko thing? Was that fairly early on too?
No, so I think I've observed over so many years, interactions that are happening in my own collection, and just, surfing the internet and seeing what other breeders are making and just coming to my own conclusions in that way. But really, I think I need to give credit to Lil Monsters for writing the genetics guide that they put out a few years ago. And once I got my hands on that information, reading that information, which I actually find myself reading that almost daily, um, I was able to really make connections I needed to make in my own collection and really start ramping up the production of what I was trying to make, you know. Um,
Absolutely.
and that was only a few years ago. So that's why I
Really,
think, yeah, this hobby is really in its early stages, because
it
it's
is.
just now in the recent years that people are learning about the genetics and how everything plays with each other. And yeah.
Absolutely. And for anybody out there too that hasn't checked it out, go to Little Monsters website and you can actually download the PDF. I have it on my phone also. It's the Foundation Genetics. I don't know if it's a book, but you'll see it on the website Foundation Genetics, and there'll be a download option. There's a part one and a part two, I believe. When you download it, I think you probably get them both. But if you're having any questions about any genes or morphs or interactions, or I mean, even as basic as just identifying like flames and harlequin type stuff, every bit of information that's collectively been gathered thus far in the hobby is probably in that article or book or web, whatever you call those things. So go give it a check out. You don't have to pay for it. You can download it for free. Thank Anthony and Jessica, for doing a lot of that work. They did some serious stuff. It's worth reading, even if you don't agree with something they may say or something they may write. If you're disagreeing, hopefully at least thinking, right? And if they get you thinking and get you looking at your animals, then something's happening, and that's a huge part of it. Did you get the email today or yesterday maybe about the new morph or new gene, the marbling?
Yes, so that's what I was going to mention.
I
The
didn't read it
great
yet.
thing, yeah, the great thing about Little Monsters is that they continue to update these articles and they're constantly putting out new information.
Yes.
And yeah, just as recent as today and yesterday, they put out the marbling article. And yeah,
So
really
tell me about it.
exciting.
I didn't read it. I want to even hear it from you.
I don't know too much about it. What I know is that it seems to be a dominant trait that's being passed on. It was found by a breeder in Korea.
Really?
The main parts of it's basically a weird white speckling all over the body. It's not snowflake, even though I think it can be confused in that way. Um, they showed like close-ups of the scales where you can see that there's like black outlining on the scales. Really interesting. The bellies are translucent. So
Really?
yeah, it's really
All
exciting.
right, I'll definitely be reading this
Yeah,
tonight. That's
yeah.
cool. Yeah, man. Again, huge shout out to Little Monsters, man. They're doing some cool stuff for us. As much as we all like to think we have everything and we do everything, they're doing the work. They're doing the work.
Yeah.
They're putting it in paper and they're getting it to us, man. I listen to people complain about him all the time, and Anthony does this and he's done everything and he's done this. Well, I mean, he's doing it right. Like he's doing the work. He's getting us the information, even if he's wrong once in a blue moon. We've all been wrong in our lives once or twice, but he's doing the work. He's making the observations. And it's not even like it's just from his collection. He talks to a lot of people. He deals with a lot of people that are dealing with a lot of animals. Like it's collect, it's not just him and his collection, if you will. He's gathered information from lots of sources and lots of places and put this stuff together for us. And it's a huge blessing, huge asset. It really is, because and we can listen to people talk about genetics for a long time, and we all learn and hear things a little differently, and when you can read it yourself and reread it and say, what does that mean? Or, just, it's good to have it on paper, right? Like it's well, in theory, it's good to be able to read it and have the information in black and white in front of you, as opposed to someone, talking to you at a conference or on a podcast. Or it's a great resource. It really, really is. I don't know where he was the other day. Oh, Gecko Diva. I saw them on there. They're actually, I guess they're going to print it, huh? They're going to get it to print.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
awesome. That's very cool. That's very cool. I'll definitely have a copy of that. I don't know how I want to ask you this question. I don't know how to get the information out of you. I want to talk to you about genetics. I want to talk to you about how you feel. How So you're working with the cappuccino gene. You're working with the lily white gene. So there's a lot of people out there, like myself in particular. When I got into this, how can you explain to us how genes work? Like, what's a dominant gene? What's a recessive gene? What do people mean when they say het? Give us a science lesson real quick, Quincy.
Okay, so when people
Please.
are saying het, they're referring to a recessive gene. It's, for example, axanthic. You can have a het axanthic animal that looks completely normal, but it is carrying the axanthic gene, meaning that it can pass it on to its offspring. You need two het axanthics to produce a visual axanthic. So in theory, that would make that animal valuable, harder to produce, right? And then we see incomplete dominant genes like cappuccino. You only need one cappuccino to make another cappuccino. If you put two incomplete dominant genes together, you can make a super form, which we know super cappuccino is not viable. I mean, it lives, but not for a long time. Really not recommended to try to
Yeah,
produce that. But I
definitely
think,
not for anyone
yeah,
out
I'm looking for, I mean, we only have a few recessive genes right now. We have Phantom, we have Axanthic, we have Pixel, and we have a few that are in the works, I guess. That's really what I'm interested in seeing the most would be recessives.
there. Okay. Now, what's
Mhm.
what's the difference between a trait or a morph rather? I think most people use the word morph. What how would you explain the difference between a morph and a gene? Or is a gene a morph?
Right, so morph is just multiple genes working together.
So like
Gene, yeah,
a tiger Dalmatian, that's
right,
just a
that'd be
bunch
a
of
combo.
different.
Yeah,
So what do you know about the pixel? What's up with the pixel?
the pixel is highly debated, but we can look at the information that Pangea put out recently. They put out an article
Let me see.
showing how they proved Pixel to be a recessive gene. There is a lot of debate about this due to other breeders having Pixel in their collection or having animals that look to be Pixel in their collection and maybe believing that it could be working in a different way than Pangea has said. I can tell you from my own experience, it seems to be recessive. Um, why I say that is because this past season, I paired up a new pair of geckos. My intention for the pair was to make hypo yellow super soft tigers, right? First time paired them. I got about 7 or 8 babies. One of them hatched and it was like right out of the egg. Holy crap. This is a pixel.
Really?
I had no idea that this was in my collection. The animals, the parents don't look pixel at all. Um, so to me, that tells me, okay, both of these animals are carrying that gene. It's
Okay.
recessive and therefore produced one visual pixel. So this season, because that happened, I was able to acquire a visual pixel from Pangea. So I will be breeding that male. That's a male that I bought from Pangea. I'll be breeding him back to the female that produced that baby.
Okay.
So I can prove that, okay, this is Pixel, or this is the same Pixel that Pangea has,
Yeah.
or maybe it's something completely different.
I've heard talk, we've all heard a lot of talk about this pixel. There's a lot of buzz going on around about it.
Yeah,
That there may possibly be two different types of pixel or two different lines of pixel, if you will. Like I don't know anything about it. I don't have anything remotely close in my collection at all, but I don't even remember where I heard this conversation, but I heard someone saying that maybe this line isn't that line. Someone had brought a pixel animal and put it to a pixel animal and nothing happened or something like that. But is it possible? Do you think that it's possible that two different lines don't react with each other the way that I don't know the scientific terms for it, but like say tokay geckos, for example. There's different types of albinos. If you took those two different types of albinos and paired them together, you're not going to get albinos. They're like not compatible albinism genes or something. Is that possible with this pixel gene?
Definitely. I mean, anything's possible right now with crested geckos because it's still so new
Yeah,
in all of this. But I think a big confusion that's happened with Pixel, and it happens with other morphs and genes that we have, is that sometimes combos can present in a way that may resemble Pixel.
very, very.
And there's only, you obviously need to breed it out to figure that out. But I think there's a lot of animals out there that can look Pixel but are not.
Very true.
And maybe things like that were happening where someone saw an animal they thought was a Pixel, and that wasn't working out.
Oh yeah. Hey,
I
it's
know,
exciting if
yeah.
anything.
Oh, it's definitely exciting. We're so early in on this. If you look at ball pythons, for example, ball pythons, 20 years ago were huge in the morph game. Like these morphs were selling for crazy numbers, and it was like how we are right now with oh, every season there were new morphs being found and new combos being made. I think that's where we are right now with crested geckos.
I agree.
So, yeah.
I definitely agree. So I can talk about pixels forever, but you have so much information. I want to try to tap your head a little more about this. It's a question I really would just ask you off the podcast. What do you know about the monochrome? What's the difference between a monochrome and a phantom?
I have no information about monochrome.
Really?
I'll say that flat out, because I don't believe any information's been put out about monochrome. From what I've observed, seeing some of the animals online, seems to be a really interesting line of phantom.
That's what
Um,
I thought. And that's the only place I
yeah,
see them also is online. And every time I see one, I'm like, that's just like a cool phantom. Like it's a phantom. I don't know, but I guess that's how I figured. I didn't know people always talk about this gene, this monotone gene, and I can never really get a straight answer. I don't. But again, I guess there's no information.
right. Well, there's the one breeder that found this. I'm not sure if he originally put it out as a line of his or a potential gene that he was working on, but he's the one that made it. So everyone's kind of waiting for him to put out that
Oh, so
information.
there's only one person has them. Really?
Right.
See, that's how much I'm out of the loop with that. I didn't really know. I try not to. I do try to follow the trends, if you will. But very early on in life in general, I made a vow to follow things that I'm passionate about, and kind of just let trends be trends. And I get guys in your situation, you have a big business, a big following, like you have to stay up on trends. A new gene comes out, you're in the mix, it's or you have the right to be at least. People like myself that are just, hobbyists that do this for a, pastime. I genuinely stick to the genes and stuff again and the animals in general that I really love, whether they're popular or they're not popular. It's just what I love. I sometimes in the mix of that, I miss a lot of these new things that are happening. I hear about it a little late, if you will. But it's an exciting time again with everything that's going on. I mean, if you think just in the last couple of years, right? I mean, how much has come? I mean, cappuccinos, I mean, which in theory, I guess have been around for a while, which is so odd too. I wanted to talk to you because if cap's been around for so long, how come frappuccinos just started popping up like within the last 5 years? Is there a bunch of fraps out there that people just assume are lilies that we don't even know about?
Yes,
It's got to be
definitely.
right. That's
Definitely.
I was.
I think that's something that really contributes to a lot of confusion is
Mhm.
like when new genes are being found. I mean, say I have something right now in my collection that's unknown. And maybe I sold some offspring from that pair last year and the season before that. And the season before that, it's like, okay, I know 10 animals are out there floating around somewhere, but I never identified them till now.
Very true.
That
Very
that
true.
that causes confusion.
Very true. So what is I guess you can't really say if anyone had a question, what would they do if they were questioning a particular animal. But I guess that's where like the literature and the little monster things comes into play. You'd have to ask people and compare them to other animals and take the time. And I think with the super caps, the whole breed it out thing, like is kind of taking a seat on the bench for a while. If in doubt, breed it out type of thing. Like that didn't really work out well.
No.
Um, Listen, I saw a post somewhere today. I don't even remember where it was, but briefly saw a post that someone put down an animal, a super cap, because he got so bad, muscle was deteriorating so bad that he couldn't hold his head up to eat. He was losing 2 grams a week or something. So they put the animal down. It's what do you know any scientific reasons on why some genes do that? Like what's the science behind super caps doing that? What makes those super genes, the double copies of that cappuccino gene, cause those issues?
I don't know specifically what it is, but we've seen it in other species before where certain genes, it's a lethal combo. It just
Yeah.
doesn't work out for whatever reason. Yeah, there's multiple issues with the super cappuccino, unfortunately. As much as I think a lot of people wanted it to work, it's obvious that it doesn't.
Yeah. Did you ever have any? Did you ever get to observe them and yeah. So it's that
I
bad, huh?
did. I did, yeah, because like you mentioned, the when in doubt, breed it out theory happened early on with cappuccino. So when we were all thinking, oh man, this could be a cap, this could be a cap, we got to pair them to figure it out. I did that one season for a pair, and they were both caps.
Yeah, well, you were right.
Yeah.
Right? So what would people do now? What's the proper way? What's the responsible way for someone to do that now if they had cappuccinos or animals that they were suspected were cappuccinos and say maybe they didn't have access to a lily white, even though they're cheap enough now that everyone probably has one. But what would you suggest, or what is the industry's standard, if you will, for proving out something that could potentially be well, I guess there's really only that, right? Like a lethal gene.
Yeah, I think the only options would be trying to produce a Frappuccino or maybe trying to produce a Luwak, a cap to Sable. Um, I think those would really be the only options right now, but if you're not in the situation to do that, just don't.
What's so enlighten us small people out here on a luwak. What is what exactly is that doing? What type of interaction does that gene have on the animal?
So Luwak is Cappuccino to Sable, the super form of that. So those two genes, Cap and Sable, are so close, they can produce a super form together, but it hasn't, it's not lethal or it's not as detrimental as a super cap is. I won't say 100% that they are perfect. I do have one that's young that I'm growing out, just for my own observation to see how it grows and see if it does grow normally, if it does thrive and breed and all that stuff. Um, but it seems to be a lot better than the super cappuccino.
Hmm. And I'll post pictures on here too, guys. So I'm sure you'll see them by the time I'm saying this. You'll see pictures I'm going to add on here. So you just showed your hand. You're working with sables then. So you have sables in your collection now. Tell
Yeah.
us about them. Spill the beans, kid. I know nothing about them. To a lot of us, they're still kind of like in that elite category. What's teach us about the sable. What's going on with the sable gene?
So Sable's really interesting. I think I was one of the people in the beginning that was really like skeptical of Sable, just because it is so similar to cappuccino in a lot of ways. Um, but overall, I think it produces a really beautiful animal. It can really white and white and brighten everything. It really spreads white pattern everywhere, depending on how you're pairing it. Um, I'll say that I'm not producing any yet. I have animals that I've acquired. Like I bought. There's a person that's making beautiful sables right now, which is AJ from AJD Reptiles. Um, I acquired two from him, Sable and a Sable Lily White, to grow out eventually to hopefully produce some high-end sables.
Yeah,
Um, and then I have the Luwak that I really bought just for observation because
that's cool. That's
I need to
awesome.
see this
Someone's
stuff
got to
for
do it,
myself.
right?
Yeah.
Someone's got to do it, dude. I mean, people bash people for having certain animals. It's not like you have these animals or breeding these animals or doing them for bragging rights. These are for observational purposes. You're learning. Without people learning and observing, there would be no, foundation genetics information. People wouldn't have this information to share with people if someone wasn't doing the work. See, myself, I was totally confused, honestly, with the sable. I thought the sable gene was like the lily white. I thought it was the white. I thought that's what the sable was. I thought a sable meant it was putting white on an animal like lily whites were, and then a lily is just white, right? It's the white gene, right? Like I
Hmm.
thought that's what sable was, like a super lily white that worked, differently with the back or something. So what you're saying is that it enhances it. It doesn't necessarily. Can you have a sable without any white? Is my question, I guess.
I assume you could. I think
Really?
most of the ones out there right now have a lot of white pattern. There are some low expression ones that I see on fetal and stuff from Korea. Um, I am bringing in a big adult male from Korea, and he
There you
should be
go.
here in the next month or so.
There you go. That's exciting.
Hopefully, I'll be able to make some soon. But yeah, I think majority of them have a good amount of white pattern on them.
Okay. So what is it? Is it what's it doing to the animal? I know you said it's like what exactly? How would someone identify a sable if they just looked at a lily or a frap or something? How could you tell the difference between a sable and a frappuccino?
So Sable and Frappuccino would be easy to tell, but the confusion would be Sable, Lily White, and Frappuccino. Because I don't know if you've looked at many, but they're nearly identical. I don't know how you'd be able to tell a Sable Lily White from a Frappuccino. They have all the same markers. It's a little bit of a race pattern right here, heavy white. I mean, there's not much of a difference there. Um, Regular Sable is similar. It's really similar to Cappuccino in the way it presents. But I think Cappuccino really darkens the animal overall, where Sable's really bringing out that white. It looks different if you compare them.
So it could be like a hypo form of cappuccino, like a
No,
hypo
it's not.
version. It's not doing hitting the dark alleles or whatever part of the gene. I got to do more looking. I just try not to look because I don't. I'm saying I don't have the money. I'm just. My wife would kill me if I thought about spending that much money on one of these things. How much are they? They still like $5,000, $6,000?
For a Sable?
Yeah.
No, no. I think you can get one now under 1,000.
Really?
Yeah,
All right. Well, then I might have one then. Damn. I thought they were still like thousands of dollars, 5 grand.
no, not anymore.
They dropped in price that fast, dude. I swear to
Yeah,
God, it felt like it was a year ago. They were 5 grand. These things.
yeah. Crazy how things work.
Wow. So now, since we're talking about these two genes, what do you know about this highway gene? Have you heard about the highway
I,
morph or
I
highway
I
gene?
definitely heard about it. I don't know much about it. I think the information that's been put out hasn't necessarily been uh, updated.
Okay.
Um, that's another one that I've been skeptical about since the beginning. But it seems to be very similar to Cappuccino and Sable.
Yes, I was listening. When I'm cleaning my animals, I always have something playing in the background. And yesterday or the day before, David from Tiki's Gecko, a podcast with him came up, and I don't remember the breeder's name, but someone that was working with these highway things was on, and I'm not really, really paying attention because I'm cleaning cages and doing what I'm doing. And I heard him talking, and in my head, I'm like, it's like cappuccino all day. It's just cappuccino all day. And then they were saying that it's like it. It's very similar, but something something something. And then this idea popped into my head, like, well, why couldn't cappuccino express itself differently? Like it could absolutely present itself in a different way in a different line. Like it doesn't mean that it's a totally different morph if it's a totally different gene. You just probably have an isolated line that's cappuccino. Like they're, eh, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm a little like up in the air on it too, but I don't know much either, other than literally an hour that I listened to and was very skeptical myself. It just wouldn't make sense for the same. It just wouldn't. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to me. I think they're great observations, and it's probably how the discovery of the cappuccino gene really unfolded for someone. But they just discovering it in their collection, if you will. It's
Yeah, I
ah,
mean, cappuccino and sable are similar. They're allelic, so it basically means they can work together to make the superform. They're I know the people working with Highway are claiming that this is another allelic gene to sable and cap is Highway. To me, I don't think that's necessarily been proven yet, but I also don't have full information on it. Like I said, I don't think the information's been updated recently, but I really would need to search for it, I guess. But yeah, we're still early on in the combo stage for both Sable and Cap, so potential for a combo to make something like that is there.
so that's what the luwak again. I'm like I don't think my head. I'm dyslexic, dude. I'm shocked. The luwak is the cappuccino and the sable.
Yes, it's the super form of Cap and Sable.
It makes a super form with
Yeah.
the cap. Okay, huh? That's interesting too. It almost makes like if they're not, say if you looked at genes like they were different species of animals, right? And these two species of animals could make a hybrid. They've got to be somehow related, right? Like that's how I look at these genes. Like if this cap in this sable can produce a super form, then that means in a way that the genes are kind of related for them to produce a super form.
Well, they're allelic. They're
I
working
don't.
on the same allele, so that's
Yeah.
why. Like, I don't know if you know much about ball pythons, but if there's a good comparison there with ball pythons, the blue-eyed Lucy, right?
Yes,
It's
I do
the
actually know that.
all-white snake with the blue eyes. That's a
Yeah.
super form. And
Really
there's multiple genes you can use to make an all-white snake. Um, there's like, I don't even know how many. There's multiple, three or four at least, that you can use to make that same all-white snake. And it's kind of like that.
interesting. Very interesting. Have you ever used? Are you big into ball pythons? Did you ever breed ball pythons or anything?
I never bred ball pythons, but working in the reptile industry for this long, that's a staple for everybody, right? You
Yeah.
see them at every single show and all that stuff. So
Have you ever
working in pet
used?
shops and stuff, yeah,
Have you ever talked to like a ball python breeder or used what they're doing with genes as like a blueprint? Maybe. Have you ever like
I have.
cross referenced? Yeah,
Yeah, I
it
do
makes
try to
sense.
make a lot of comparisons there.
I mean, just that reference with the making the white snake, it just like put a whole different perspective in my head. Like you
Yeah,
can get to the same ending many routes, and that has to mean something. That's it's very interesting. Very interesting. I have cappuccinos, bro, and I still have a hard time even telling what's different. Like I'm like, all right, I guess it's cappuccino. I know from the people I bought it from, I know without a doubt it's cappuccino. When they say people are like the lines on the tails, I produce other animals that have the same damn lines down the tail. There's no way they could be cappuccinos. It's I still don't understand. I still don't get a lot of it, man. I give you guys a lot of credit that can like really identify that are really doing all of this work out there. You guys are doing an incredible job. I mean, I know it's fun, and I'm glad you guys are having a fun time doing it. But I know how serious it really is, and I absolutely appreciate the work you guys are doing. It's again, still, if a lily white wasn't white every time, I'm not so sure I'd be able to tell either. Like I it's So it is what it is. I'm not a geneticist by any means.
Me neither. Me neither. It's constantly
Well,
learning, but that's the fun of it.
so what makes is tangerine a gene or is it just a morph? What is tangerine?
Tangerine is a gene. It's a
Really?
enhancing gene. Yeah, it enhances the color.
Okay. So in theory, if you put, so I'm just finally started putting some. I haven't produced anything from, well, not intentionally. I have not intentionally produced any tangerines yet. I just always thought there were these like goldenish animals that I was just making coming from whatever. I had no idea until I started producing these solid animals. Like it's hard to explain, but now I've finally gotten to the point where I've put some together and paired them together and put some tangerines to some lilies and we'll see what happens this season. But so it's just is tangerine. See the way I don't know how to explain it. Can tangerine be a base color?
No, so tangerine would enhance it. Tangerine is an incomplete dominant. So we do actually have a super form of tangerine.
What would that be?
It's called hypertangerine. It's like
They're just like a
a
super
neon
golden in.
orange. Yeah,
All right, all right, that makes sense. It makes a lot more sense. And it wouldn't affect anything else. So you could pretty much have a hyper tangerine anything, tigers, tricolors, Dalmatians. It wouldn't affect any of that other stuff. It's just a color enhancing gene.
yeah, it's purely
Yeah,
on the color. I tell a lot of people if they're questioning whether their animal is tangerine or not, a good identifier for me, at least with my animals, is I look at the belly. And you'll
okay.
notice that on tangerines, the belly has a neon orange mark on the chest or the belly. Um, that's not the only gene that has that mark because actually cappuccino makes a neon orange color that can present in the same way as tangerine. Um, but yeah, if you look at tangerines, you'll see they all have this really neon orange on the chest and belly.
Yeah, I'm gonna look.
Yeah, you gotta look at yours and maybe you'll start noticing it.
Yes, that's my again, like I said, my problem is that I'm not like super focused and I should be. It's kind of like ignorant of me to not be focused on like specific genes. It's kind of like I know my animals. I see what they produce. I see traits and characteristics and stuff that I like. So I pair them to animals with, you know, a certain, with intent. I don't do it just randomly just to make animals. I always have an objective. And I don't really question whether it's a gene that's doing it or it's this that's doing it. I just, again, like I said, I'm just doing this for fun and I love making, cool animals. But I have to start being a little more observe. I don't want to say observant because I'm definitely observant, but I should know what's doing what. Instead of animals. I'm like this animal does this and this animal does that. What's making that animal do that? I need to start paying a little more attention to. But what is it? A cappuccino isn't what a cappuccino is just a color enhancing gene. No, what does a cappuccino do to an animal?
It definitely alters the color overall. I think there's a lot of characteristics of it that you could point out. Definitely darkens the color. Pairing white animals, like white pattern animals, to cappuccino, a lot of times the pattern will come out like an orange or like a brownish orange color. They tend to have like darker eyes. They have the black tail or nearly black tail. Um, when they hatch, the base of the tail is normally like paper white opposed to off white or beige. Um, there's a lot of characteristics I guess you could point out, but it definitely can be hard to identify, especially when you're looking at things like Phantom Cappuccino
Right.
opposed to Phantom, like a dark Phantom. They can look the same in a lot of ways.
Very confusing. Very
Yeah.
confusing. Do you- so I want to talk about this. I keep thinking about it too. The highlighter gene or whatever they're calling it that pops up on lily whites. What do you think that is? What do you think is causing that? What's your thought on this highlighter gene?
So highlighter, I don't know if it's been proven to be a gene yet, but I think there's two things that people are seeing and they're calling highlighter. One of them is highlighter, which is what was, identified, I believe, by Altitude Exotics. And it's like that neon yellow you see on the back of the legs, and you see it maybe on the smile or on the portholes or something, and it's usually like coating pieces of white. But another thing we see, which is the effect of tangerine over white pattern, where sometimes I think like a lesser example of tangerine paired to a white pattern animal can actually coat the white pattern in what looks like highlighter. It looks like a neon yellow opposed to orange. So I think there might be two different things going on there, and it's kind of getting a little,
Yeah, yeah.
confused.
Which I believe is going to happen, has already been happening for a while. I think that's going to be I would say a problem down the road, but it will be for some. Like I said, with the caps and the lilies before, people were probably making frappuccinos for a while, not knowing that caps were caps, and it's now those animals are out there, and some people still don't know, and they're producing these animals. I think that's going to happen with a lot of genes. Um, but again, I think it's how a lot of them are going to show up too. A lot of genes are showing their head by all of these combinations and stacking all of these genes and stuff. It'll sort its way out. It'll sort its way out. I think that the more people that join the hobby, the more people are going to discover stuff. I mean, some stuff is going to get confusing, I guess. I mean, as long as I'm around, it's all going to be confusing. What are your
Yeah.
stance on the empty back and empty backs and super stripes?
So I
Not
just
really
did
your
a
stance, but are they
yeah.
those genes? Are they morphs? Are they what is? Talk to us about these empty backs and super stripes.
So empty back is definitely a gene, and it is comparable to super stripe and pinstripe, right? But I think has not been proven yet. This is still being debated right now whether superstripe is its own gene, maybe allelic to empty back, or if superstripe is a combo of empty back.
Okay.
Um, so basically saying that in order to make a superstripe, you need empty back. In my collection, I work with a lot of empty back, and I can tell you that superstripes have hatched from these pairs. So, right, and many people agree with that. So to me, it seems like the most sense would be that it is a combo, but that hasn't been set in stone yet.
Okay. So that's why a lot of stuff is still confusing too, because I'll hear people would talk about the empty backs and it's not super stripe and it's not this and then something will happen to you and you're like, well, I know I'm not crazy. I'm looking at the animal like this is like clearly a super stripe. Like there's nothing here, just pinstripes, big open head, like with a line up its tail. Even the thing will have like these couple of
Yeah,
these
yeah,
animals, and they don't come out every egg, but I've produced 3 of them over the last couple of years, and they all come from empty backs. Like they empty back animals that made them. I don't have any breeding super stripes. Like, so somewhere along the line, these animals are coming from. But
yeah. I mean, something that I always encourage people to do is when you learn something new, or say you go through and you read the whole genetic guide by Little Monsters, go back to your collection, and even if you've had these animals for 10 years, sit down and look at these geckos,
yeah.
and you're going to start noticing, oh my God, I didn't even identify that this thing is an empty back.
Oh,
I do that all the time. I have animals that I've had since the beginning of this. And I go back and I look and I'm like, how did I not realize that this is an empty back? How did I not realize this is soft scale? And I've had it this long. It's just because, you have it in your mind, oh, that's a pinstripe. And then you go and you learn something new, and then you're able to finally identify it in the right way. So I definitely encourage people to do that. Go back, look at your collection, even if it's the first gecko you ever got, and you think, okay, it's a Harlequin. Just go look at it and see if there's something that you've missed there.
absolutely. When I
Yeah,
first got into this, my first animal was a $40 gecko that I bought off a marketplace. I knew nothing about him. I was at a reptile show and I was breeding frogs at the time. I had a bunch of different species of frogs, like over 150 different species of frogs. And I took my kid to a reptile show in White Plains, New York, and we're walking around, and she kept looking at these geckos. The crested geckos were everywhere, and she's like, "What are those? What are those?" I'm like, "I don't know. We're not dealing with that. Let's go. Keep going." So then she goes to a table, she does something, and she comes back. She's like, "They're called eyelash geckos." So I'm like, "Christ, here we go." But I wanted her to get into something, I guess, that I was in, So I encouraged it, like, "All right, cool, learn about them, learn a little something, and we'll get you one, Like if you like them, you want one, teach me something about them." So she does, and to make a long story short and short story shorter, we wind up buying one. And years later, I learned that this thing was a super soft scale, right? Like I knew nothing about these animals. I'd always look and I'd always notice, right? Like she was quite literally the definition. I still have her, but she is like super soft. Her whole body is like belly scales, like just belly scales, her whole body. So people are talking about this for a couple of years. I'm not even paying any mind to it. I'm like, it's got to be normal. Like, how would I just get one like that? I have one. Like, it's nothing special. It can't be anything special. It's just basic. But this whole time now, she's breeding. I'm making them. They're popping out all over the place. And I'm just thinking it's normal. So it's gotten to the point where 7 years later, I have just about everything is a super soft scale. It's like now that, when I don't have one, it's an odd thing. I'll look and I'm like, oh, they actually look cool with regular scales. It's
Yeah,
it's just
exactly.
two of those strange things that happens, I guess. But it was the foundation. I think it was a lot of things actually, because when it started really making some buzz, I started paying a lot more attention, and then I got confused when I started hearing people arguing about it. I kind of have the tendency to just I don't. You're gonna steal my fun, I don't want to get in the argument. I'm not gonna say anything that I've seen or tell you anything I can prove because I just don't want to be in the drama. But then I started hearing they were saying, you know, well, whatever, somebody, Juliana's geckos, it's scattered scale, and then there's soft scale. Is there really a difference? Is there a difference or is there not a difference?
So I know that Juliana had just recently put out the kaleidoscope information. Um,
See that
it,
either, man. Why am I missing all this stuff?
so it's another pretty lengthy ebook type genetic information that they put out called Kaleidoscope Crested something that I haven't even had the chance to sit down and read thoroughly.
Okay.
Um, I was just talking, a bunch of people are talking about this recently um, because of the soft scale thing, and I do intend to read it. Hopefully next week when I have some time to sit down and read it. It's going to be a long read. But I know that they're saying some different things about soft skills. So I'm interested to read that and see what it is.
Yeah. I listened to a
Yeah.
podcast that they were on, and it was confusing to me. And I'm not bashing anybody by any means. The last thing I ever want to do is put anybody down or bash what anybody's doing. If you're doing work, you're helping us. But I often feel that sometimes people are so eager to discover something that they may be overreaching a little, if you will. Like and I don't mean this in a bad way, but I feel like everybody wants to discover the next gene, right? Everybody wants to discover the next morph. Everybody, so sometimes I feel like certain people will try to describe things a little differently than they are. I think sometimes there's a lot of unnecessary confusion. Like I personally feel when you look at a super soft scale, like Quincy, there's no mistaking these animals that I bought that I produce are super soft scales. There is not. I mean, they have pinstripes. They do have pinstripes. Some, most, all of them, yeah. But the rest of their body looks like belly scales. Like they are perfectly symmetrical, perfectly smooth. They look like 1200 grit sandpaper. Like they look like stingray skin. They are just smooth. There's occasionally some will have a gnarly big scale here or there, but there's no mistaking it, right? Like it's super, there's not much to debate. Like you could break out a million microscopes. I can see it from across the room. It's not every scale is just about the same size. It's I don't know,
Yeah.
pretty clear.
Yeah. When you look at them closely, I mean, you can look at them under a loop or something, or you can just look at them with your naked eye. You'll see that the scales are super far apart compared to a normal gecko, and the scales are so round, they're like bubbly
Yeah,
looking, and they're flat almost. Yeah, overall, the gecko looks very soft and smooth.
yeah. Well, I definitely never looked at one under a microscope. Like I said, it's just you. It's my eye. I'm like I said, I'm dyslexic, and I learn by patterns. Right. My brain is very pattern oriented. When you look at them, you just notice how uniform, I guess, this scalation is, as opposed to like some of the other, regular animals, or you know what it is. There's no reason for me, my retarded ass, to try to explain it to people. But what is that? So soft scale is a gene, then, right? It has to be. It's a gene. It's a gene. What's a
Yeah,
They call it super soft scale, but to really super soft scale is just soft scale, right? Like I have not experienced any in between. Like my animals again are either soft or they're not, or there's something I'm missing. But like I said, there's no like there's no unless again unless I'm missing something. Super soft scale is just a like soft scale, or am I
so
wrong?
I know soft scale to be an incomplete dominant gene, where you're seeing like a greater exaggerated version of it on the super soft.
Okay.
But it is really hard to measure. I know that the kaleidoscope information that's come out recently is saying that it could be a recessive, and that would change a lot of things for me. And that's why I need to sit down and really read this information that's been put out. But in my collection, I have a lot of soft scale animals, and trying to compare them to normal and trying to compare them to what I believe is a super soft. There's definitely a difference there. How do we measure the scale separation and that type of thing
Yeah.
is kind of hard to say. But yeah, as far as I've seen and observed in my own collection, I see it to be incomplete dominant. But it seems to be debated right now.
I Hey, it's interesting. I'm definitely going to read that myself now because I'm curious. I'll definitely listen to everything everybody says. I have nothing but respect, and will hear everybody out. It's again, like I said, it's so it's like everywhere in my collection. It's
Yeah,
again
me
like
too.
it's super odd when I see a animal that's not a soft scale. Like they look unique. The regular animals look unique because I have so many soft scales. What's You ever see lilies that have those like almost extra scales on their white patterning? They have, I think there is a name for them or something, where they have like
Yeah,
like the pinstripes aren't pins. They're kind of, what is that? What do they call that? Something with a B. Bulba
yeah.
scales.
So the boba scale is like a line of
Oh,
animals
it's
that
just a
was
line.
bred by Zengex. I don't know if it's been, I don't know if it's been proven to be a specific gene making this, or if it's just a line of animals that he's been making, but they're amazing.
Yeah.
What I was gonna say about both that applies to this and the soft scale is that I think there's a lot to be discovered with the scalation on geckos,
Scale
because
mutations.
yeah, I do see a lot of different types of scalation, not just soft scale in my own collection.
Absolutely.
I have animals that look like they have spikes coming out the side of the body.
Mhm.
We got the hairy line, right, from
Yep.
AC with the
Double
super long
pins.
pins. Yeah,
I got animals with double
yeah,
pins on
yeah.
their crests.
It looks like shark
Yep.
teeth, right?
Yep.
So I think there's a lot more there that needs to be worked on the scalation.
So they do
Um,
in ball pythons and snakes in general. Look how many scaleless snakes they've produced. I agree with you 100%, Quincy. I think that's going to be one of the next big things, is these scale mutation morphs and whatnot, because they do, they pop up. I have a lily who I didn't really pay much attention to, but I've had him around because I like his contrast. So I started looking at him the other day. I had him out. I'm checking him out, and he has pins, his pinstripes, full pinstripes, but they're not pinstripes, they're mounds. So I'm like, what? That's why I started looking, what the hell is this? But the only one I have, no other adult lily that I have has them, no nothing. He doesn't, he has mounds on his back and where pins would be. There's no cone shaped point to them. They're just the gnarliest little mounds, but Strange part is it's affecting his crests too. He doesn't have long crests. His crests are almost nubs, so it's definitely some sort of scale mutation or something's happening. But
Oh, you
I
got a
got
project
my eyes.
right there for yourself.
Yeah, I've definitely got my eyes on him. He's over there. You know, that's the other thing I really love about these things too. Is I don't. You can always discover something new in your collection if you pay enough attention to your animals. You'll always see something different. As much as they, I guess, look the same, they're all so different. So different. It's very. How many animals do you have? How many animals are you like in your whole collection, crested gecko wise?
Large number.
Yeah, is that
Yeah.
I maybe crested geckos have maybe about somewhere between 75 and 100. So I look at that as it's like I'm in a candy shop every day. I come in this room, I get to look at something new every time. And the same animals. I look at them every single day, every day of the week. I'm looking at these animals, and I'm always discovering something new. And I don't mean genes or morphs or anything like that, but just little differences, things that have developed, things that have changed with the animals, and I love that about this. But I can only imagine if you have that many animals, it's got to be complicated to look at them all day.
Yeah,
Jeez.
I mean, it's exciting, large collections, that's where you see things like anomalies popping
Yes.
out and things. And
Yes.
I've had a lot of anomalies popping out recently, and I think it's just because of
Really?
the numbers. Yeah,
Could be. I mean, it makes
yeah,
sense. The odds are in the numbers. I when I first got into this, I bought all of my animals other than the couple select ones. But I wind up when I knew that I wanted to do a lot of like breeding with them, and I got out of the frog thing and started doing these. I bought wholesale animals from Anthony Caponetto, man. I
yeah.
wind up buying the same thing that David from Tiki's Geckos did. I gathered up, maybe a couple grand, and I wind up buying like 15 or 20 of his high end hatchlings, and I raised them all up. And I told myself, like, I'm not gonna buy anything else. Whatever's in this, whatever genes and whatever genes because I know anything really about, you know, well, morphs. I was saying nothing about genes. Whatever morphs are in here is what I'm gonna work with. I'm gonna pick the best of the best in here. I'm gonna pair whatever I like together, and I'm gonna work with nothing but these animals, and that's it. Now, ultimately, I wind up buying animals and whatnot, but a good chunk of the foundation of my animals are still from those original orders from Anthony Caponetto's. So I often think about that too. How many animals he has, how many animals all of these actually came from, like the pairs, like how many different pairs made all of these 20 animals that I originally bought from him. Like there could be a lot in there. I've had Tangerine pop up out of there. The empty back has popped up out of AC's animals. Soft scales have popped up out of these, Anthony's animals. Like a lot of things have popped up over the years from those animals, man.
But yeah, his collection is heavily stacked. I mean, I'm sure you got some powerhouse animals there if they came from Anthony.
Definitely. Like I
Yeah,
said, some like the scale mutations. I got a couple of those hairy lined ones. The soft scales. Like I said, the tangerine. Tangerine empty backs. Yeah, there's some nice ones. I unfortunately I let some stuff go that I shouldn't have. And I'm kicking myself in the butt. And I watch people that have them now and see the animals they're producing with them, and I'm like, you freaking idiot! Like I just went through one of those phases where I'm like, I'm gonna cut down, and I'm only gonna work with this, and I don't need those. I don't care how nice I don't need them. And here I am.
it's always that way.
Unbelievable. And then
Yeah,
I wind up buying again, like I said, wind up buying the cappuccinos and the this because again, back to the cappuccinos, I get so confused, dude. I had to buy them. I had to buy a couple because I couldn't tell the difference. You could show me pictures of a cappuccino next to a whatever animal. Quiz, I can't tell you the damn difference. I own them now and I still can't tell you the difference.
Hmm.
So maybe when I start producing them, something will change. But like I'm looking at them and I'm like, my fraps, they're clearly frappuccinos. I bought them, but I bought them as babies. I buy everything as a baby just because I don't know. I like watching things grow. If I see how it grows and I know what to look for when they have babies, and I'll have a better idea on how certain things progress, and that's just how I do my stuff. I get that a lot of people don't; they just buy breeding animals, and that's cool. But I like to watch them. I like to see what does what. So I mean, not for nothing, you could see an adult gene, right, or an animal with gene whatever, and it's an adult. It may not look like that as a baby. You may not know what to look for. So it's just part of my process, if you will.
Definitely.
But all right, dude, we're coming up. We're over an hour. Um, what do you talk to us about your business? What do you have planned for your business? Are you vending shows? Do you have any shows coming up? If anybody was down in Florida and wanted to check you out, where can people find you with some shows?
So my next physical show will be at Daytona in August.
Awesome.
I'm not doing too many in-person shows, but I do a lot of virtual shows on Palm Street. I've been
Very
doing an
cool.
auction every Friday
I
almost.
mean, crushing it too, dude. Crushing it. I go in there
Yeah,
just to have fun. I love it.
it's so much fun.
Yeah,
And I intend to use that platform to educate, um, maybe doing something educational once a month or something like that.
very
I
cool.
I think it's an easy way to get in front of a big audience of people who are interested in these geckos and really teach them something because a lot of these people are new on Palm Street,
Yes,
and they're really interested and they really want to get into it, but they need more information. So I intend to make it educational.
why don't you
Maybe
start a YouTube channel, bro? Like you have a huge talent, dude. That's why I wanted to get you on here, and I feel bad that I talk so damn much. But that's just who I am. I just talk, dude, and I talk and I talk and I talk, and I'm sitting here thinking of like 5 years of following you and watching your animals, and my head's going like this, and I'm going in 10 different directions. So my whole idea was to get you on here and to have you
yeah,
teach, because I know how good of a teacher you are. I know how much I've learned from listening to little tidbits that I've heard, you teaching on different platforms, on the podcast you guys were doing and other people's podcasts, and like I always learned. I learned from you. You have a talent for teaching.
thank you.
It's
I'd
you'd
love to
crush
have
it if
my
you did a
own.
YouTube channel, man.
Thank you, thank you. I'd love to have my own YouTube channel, but I think I have so much going on. I'm so busy. I have a huge collection that I take care of on my own. I did have an employee at one point, but I don't have an employee right now. So I spend
Really?
like 60 hours a week doing this.
Are you doing it full
And
time? So you don't can't possibly have a fun job too, do you?
I have a part-time job.
What?
So yeah, I prefer, guest appearances on others' podcasts rather than having my own. But I think Palm Street would be an easy way for me since I'm already on there, weekly doing the auctions. I can just throw in one every once in a while that'll just be educational.
Absolutely. You make money while
It's
you're doing it.
hey,
Sell some
yeah,
animals while you're teaching. It's a beautiful thing. That's brilliant, actually. It's great. You know, People tune
yeah,
in. Like I said, I mean, no offense, but anytime I come on, I'm not just gonna impulse buy anything. Like I would absolutely buy animals from you. Like I said, I have, but when I come on there, I usually come on just to listen to what's going on in the hobby, listen to what you got going on. It's it would be a good spot. So my point is, I can imagine other people come in there with other intentions than just buying animals too. I'm sure if the right situation, presented itself, I'd act on it, and buy something. But I think that you would it'd be good for you. You can teach again and make it worth your while. You're doing your business and doing your social media thing all at one time. That it's really cool. It'd be cool to watch you do something like that. Teaching while selling animals, or maybe you teach about a gene that you get ready to sell, or an animal that an interaction between two genes or two traits or something, and then offer an animal with those combinations up for sale. That would be very cool.
yeah, yeah,
Very
yeah.
cool.
Next week I'm traveling to Tinley to just, you know, enjoy the show. So I'll be traveling that Friday, and usually my stream is that auction is that Friday. So I think that night, instead of doing an auction, I will be live on Palm Street from the hotel, and I'll just teach about some stuff. We'll see.
That's awesome. I'll be there. I'll be tuning in, brother. That's awesome. Very cool.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
your website? You want to tell everybody where they can maybe find some animals that you have for sale other than Palm Street, where someone can look to buy some of your animals?
Yeah, so my website's gekonerd.com. I have a shop on there where you can see some animals I put up for sale. I have a collections page where you can see some pairs that a lot of the animals are coming from. I've got care guides and information on there about how to care for a new animal. And if you're receiving an animal that's being shipped to you, there's information about that. So anyone definitely check out the website and
Very nice
go through
website,
that.
guys. Check it out.
Thank
I'm
you.
on there. I'm always on the website, man. It's very functional, I guess you could say. It's very user friendly. It's a well done well done website. Very
Thank you.
nice.
Yeah.
Do you have a morph market?
Yeah, Morph Market, Gecko Nerd, is going to be the same availability as the website. And then, like, if you want to keep up to date with me frequently, it would be Instagram and Facebook. Instagram is where I am every single day. I post a lot of projects on there and all kinds of stuff. So definitely Instagram's a way to reach out to me if you want.
By the way, dude, whenever you posted a picture yesterday or today of that yellowish tiger thing, dude, what the hell is that thing? That animal is gorgeous, dude. He had like these gnarly patternish stripes on him.
Hmm.
I
Was it a
thought it was
video?
some sort of tiger of some sort. You put his name on there. Dude, I don't know, but I meant to ask you when I saw you. I was like, dude, I gotta ask him about this. This animal is gorgeous. Let me see.
Hello, Tiger. Huh. I don't know which
Well, it
one
may
that
not have
is.
been yellow. Maybe I'm losing my damn mind. This one. What's her name? She's a tiger, right?
The video. I got a lot
Tiger.
of heat for that video, man. Did
Really?
you like that? Yeah.
And then Oscar. Oscar?
Yeah, Oscar is a tiger. That's from my margin line.
Oh, really? Those two animals, dude. I'm like, dude, it's just so beautiful, man. How the stripes aren't all the way across. They're just like a real tiger stripes, dude. That's a beautiful animal, man. I know that a lot of people probably look at it and think that it's just a tiger, but to me, it's not. Like that's like it's like a beautiful animal, very uniform,
Thank you.
very
Yeah, I think
pretty
so.
animal.
Yeah, I love
Were people
the
really mad about
fandom.
that? Why were they mad about that?
So that video, the one that you just pulled up, um,
Yeah.
that was a female that she was breeding with the male, and I pulled her out of her bin. I was looking at her for a second just to see. I was just looking at her, whatever. I do this all the time. And I touched her neck, and she started squeaking because she thought it was the
Yeah.
male breeding her. You know how they do that. So I was like, okay, let me just record this real quick. She's so loud, the way she's squeaking and stuff. And I'm just there patting her neck, and she's doing it. And man, people got upset with me because they were, oh, you're harassing the animal, you're bothering her, she doesn't like it, she's gonna drop her tail, or are you gonna force her to drop her tail, and all this stuff. And I'm like, guys, this is breeding behavior from a female that is in season. She thinks that the male approaches right there on the spot that I'm touching, and that's the reaction. They squeak and they wiggle a little, and they move the tail like that, and it's harmless. But yeah,
It is
unfortunately, I got a
harmless.
lot of heat about that. I was,
That's ridiculous.
yeah,
I
a little
often find it
surprised.
to mean that the female is encouraging the male. Like when my
Yeah,
females will do it, the male will be across the bin, and the female will start doing that. And I've over the years learned that she's trying to get him to breed. Like she's chirping, shaking her tail, and doing this little thing. Like she's trying to let him know what's up. Like it's
yeah,
you know
yeah,
it's
yeah.
I guess people will find the craziest things to get mad at. I mean, I've seen people in Korea had a pair breeding in the palm of their hand. It's
Like, guys, I observe this every single day in my breeding animals. There is nothing happening that's harming this animal.
um, real quick,
Uh,
since you talked about dropping the tail, do you think do you have a lot of animals missing their tails?
a lot? No, it's not a majority at all.
Do you think that's something that can ultimately be bred out of animals, or do you think that it's just a desensitizing them? Do you think that you can desensitize an individual animal enough that it'll never drop its tail, or do you think you can actually breed the likelihood of them dropping their tail into a line? Does that make any kind of
So,
sense?
yeah, yeah. So I heard about this. Actually, I think it was Alan Rapace that was on a podcast, and he was talking about this. And he was saying, I believe it was him, if I'm not mistaken, that he was saying that he was specifically breeding animals that were to not drop the tail. I don't know if
You got to
that's
see this
true.
stuff, man, because that
Yeah.
blows my mind, man. Because listen, I've been thinking about it for years, dude. When I tell you, out of say 100 animals, for argument's sake, that I've raised from babies, no animal that I've raised from a baby has dropped its tail. One of them, and there's a long story behind that. And it crossed my mind. I'm like, dude, I'm in here every day. I use water bowls. I know there's a lot of people are up in the air about that, but I use them for ambient humidity, and I just believe that living things in my care should have water. So I'm in changing water every day, right? So I'm in these things' lives constantly. No animals are dropping their tails. No animals. I can pick them up by their tail. Like literally, I could reach in a container, and not in a like malicious way. I could grab just about any gecko I have and pick them up by their tail and pull them out and look at them and hold them, and they won't drop tails. So I wonder. I'm like, dude, is it just me desensitizing them, or has it been so long that I've been doing this in breeding animals produced that I've produced like 3 generations or 4 generations of my animals I'm working with that don't drop their tails. So then it crossed my
Hmm.
mind like, dude, is it something I'm doing, or is it like is it even possible? To hear you say that someone else had thought that, I don't know if you realize how big of a boom that is for me. 'Cause I really thought I would sound like a lunatic for even bringing it up to anybody. That's
So,
cool.
I mean, yeah, I think there is something to that. I think in my collection, personally, the majority of the time when I have an animal drop the tail, it's usually during breeding. Um, it's usually the male, and it's usually during breeding. But I have noticed, I won't name the people, but I obviously I buy a lot of animals from other breeders. And I have noticed specific lines of animals that say I'll buy 5 from this breeder, 5 from this one, and 10 from this whatever. I've noticed specific lines that tend to, the personality is different, they drop the tails easily, and things like that. So, hey, there could definitely could be something to that.
So it's definitely something interesting, because I'm not by any means suggesting that we can domesticate reptiles or anything, but there's that famous study done with the foxes, how they took the foxes and over a couple generations they bred the foxes and the tail started to curl and they started to act like regular
Dog,
animals. There's this crazy study, yeah, and I
yeah.
watched it on PBS, I think, and watched them talking about it and read an article or two about it. But very shortly were they able to, I guess, domesticate, but they turned this animal into something totally different psychologically, even physically to a degree. They weren't always in a predator, they didn't always have a predator posture, if you will. They kind of learned to relax their body language a little bit, if you will. And I really believe that we could do that with these crested geckos, man. And it's, again, it could just be a silly observation that I've made, or maybe just a silly notion altogether. But I if you take, it just doesn't make sense to me, I guess, that an animal that could use its tail, that's so valuable, right? Like, you have a somewhat prehensile tail. It's just such a valuable thing, even from breeding to everything they do, to just give it up so easily. Like, it just doesn't make sense. It's pretty gnarly.
Yeah,
So
it's interesting. And like, if you walk around shows, you'll go to, walk around, see different tables, and you'll see, okay, this table's got like 75% no tails. This table's got only one gecko without a tail. Yeah, it's interesting. There could be something there.
that's cool. It's something else to look forward to, I guess. It's not for nothing, and I'm not bashing anybody or frog butts or anything. I do have
No,
a
no.
couple of them now, but it drives me nuts, man. There's nothing worse than having like looking at an awesome lily white or something and it's missing its tail. It'd be like, yeah, I can't do it. I
Yeah.
can't, like, I personally, and again, it's just a me thing, but I wouldn't buy it. 'Cause even if you're breeding them,
Mm,
and everybody always tell me like, yeah, you're being so ridiculous. Like, you're gonna breed them, and what, the babies are gonna have tails? What does it matter? Well, to me, they're more than just breeders. They're not just these things I throw in a bin and pump babies out of. Like, I prefer my geckos with tails. When I pull them out, I love when they wrap their tail around my finger and I hold them and I flip them and they're doing
yeah.
gymnastics on my hand. I love that. Like, I'm not gonna buy it without a tail. Beautiful gecko, great. Hope someone gives them a good home, but I'm not. Hey.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, brother. I could talk to you for hours and hours and hours, and I'll spare you, and I won't. It was a complete honor and a privilege to have you on here. Like I said, you're one of the first people in the Crested Gecko community that I looked up to when I got into this and realized I wanted to do more than just keep one or two animals. Um, it really, really was like a dream come true to get to finally talk to you, dude. I really appreciate you giving me the time and coming on here and teaching us a little bit about a lot, and sorry for the confusion. Like I said, my mind is just in a million places thinking of, I guess, everything Like, it's like, what do I ask? How do I ask everything this kid probably knows? But
No, man, it's
you're a good
awesome. I
sport, and I
appreciate it.
appreciate you dealing with
Yeah.
me, man. Um, it was a complete blast, dude. Man, I wish you nothing but the best. You're crushing it with everything you're doing. I mean, keep doing it, brother. Keep it up. I
Thank you,
appreciate
man.
you.
Appreciate it so much. Thank you.
All right, guys. Have a good one. Stay weird in the best way possible and take care of your damn animals. Catch you guys in the next one.